Watch this video if you're a leader or an employee at a company with 25 people or more in Ontario, Canada. There are significant new requirements around job postings with implications for your wages that just came into force on January 1st, 2026. Hi everyone, I'm Alex, founder of Areti Academy and a leader with 12 years experience in organizational design, product ownership, and I even headed HR M&A at a major bank. I've dealt with leaders at the highest levels and crafted talent strategies covering thousands of employees. And today, we are going to review new requirements in Ontario, Canada around pay disclosure on job postings and what it really means for pay transparency and your wages. Starting January 1st, 2026, so just a few days ago, the Government of Ontario introduced amendments to the excitingly named Ontario Employment Standards Act and related legislation. Now stay tuned, because this has far-reaching implications for both employers and employees and potentially your wages. Now, if you own or work for a company with 25 or more employees in Ontario, Canada, these changes will affect you. Before compensation, let's look at the rest of this exciting legislation. First of all, these new rules will require companies to disclose whether or not a posted role is for an existing vacancy versus a company simply trying to candidate bank. For those of you who don't know, candidate banking is the practice of proactively building and maintaining a bank or pool of pre-screened candidates for future opportunities. I am glad to see the government addressing this practice. I have long felt that candidate banking and not being transparent about the opportunity is a misrepresentation of opportunity. Often job postings have timelines which set candidate expectations, and at the end of the day, it's not really fair to give people false hope when you really have no intention of filling the role anytime soon. So I will say no candidate banking. Let's give the government a check mark for that one. Another requirement, and anyone who has been ghosted while trying to find a job will appreciate this, is that employers will be required to inform applicants who have interviewed for a publicly posted opportunity whether or not a decision has been made within 45 days of their last interview. This notification can be done in person, over the phone, or in writing. And this new change really resonates with me personally. In the not so distant past, I had a very competitive application process where I was interviewed by a recruiter. Then I was interviewed by the hiring manager. Then I completed a lengthy and complex case study, which was also reviewed with the hiring manager. Then I met with the SVP and head of the group. It went quite well, I thought. I was excited for the opportunity, and I actually never heard back. This legislation would have been nice to have back then. So let's give the government another check mark for this new update. Another exciting change is that companies will have to disclose the use of AI to screen, assess, or select applicants. This is really important because many AI models can be skewed if they're trained on biased data. In my opinion, AI is still new and it's going to get better, but right now, you still need quite a bit of human intervention to make sure you have a fair and transparent process. This is another change that I think is pretty good. Let's give them a check mark. Finally, employers are no longer allowed to list whether or not a candidate needs Canadian experience for a role. Again, I think this is a good change. This targets a barrier that has long disadvantaged skilled immigrants, even when the international experience they have is equivalent to the Canadian experience. Employers may still confirm if people have required licenses or credentials, but I think removing this Canadian experience requirement will help deal with a big societal problem they have in Canada, where skilled immigrants with the right experience still can't break in and practice in their areas of expertise. So again, I will give the government a check mark. I think this is a positive change. And lastly, and this is for you employers out there, and kind of dry, but you need to know this, companies must retain copies of every publicly advertised job and associated application form for 3 years after access to the position has been removed. They must also retain copies of info provided to an applicant about whether or not a hiring decision has been made for 3 years after the information was shared with the applicant. So for leaders and owners out there, start saving these records because you're going to need them. Now the good stuff. What about pay? A particularly interesting piece of the legislation is that companies will be required to share expected compensation or a range of compensation for publicly posted job opportunities. This range cannot exceed $50,000 annually. It also won't apply where the expected compensation is either over $200,000 annually or the range would hit $200,000. So this means this new disclosure will really generally affect roles paying $150,000 and below. Now, I am all about more disclosure. Too often, candidates are so excited and desperate for a role that they'll accept anything offered to them, and this will help them better understand whether the company values the skills and capabilities that they bring to the table. But what will this do for wages? To see what disclosure can do for wages, let's examine a set of wages that have been disclosed for over 30 years. Executive wages. Since the 1990s, most publicly traded companies have had to disclose CEO pay and usually named executive officer pay. So that's typically with the CEO, the 5 top paid employees at the company. What effect has this had on pay? Well, this is controversial. The benefits of executive pay disclosure are pretty clear. They are mainly to add safeguards to prevent the looting of the company by company officers and associated board members. However, I feel this might be one of those cases where the medicine has done more harm to the patient than the disease would have. So once companies were forced to disclose pay for senior leaders, and we're not talking about a pay range, we're talking about specific numbers, all senior leaders could see what their similar peers earned at other companies. This gave company CEOs and top executives much more bargaining power when negotiating with their respective compensation committees. Further, boards could now make more educated decisions with respect to pay. Let me tell you that no company board of directors wants to call their CEO mediocre. So nearly every board thinks that their CEO is well above the average. This forced boards to set pay targets around the market median at least, if not higher. Now, while there are many factors that cause CEO pay to increase in relation to the average worker's pay, this is definitely one of them. Take a look at this graph from the Harvard Law School Forum of Corporate Governance. While published in 2018, the rise in executive pay is quite clear, nearly 500% over 30 years. Over this period, the average American median household income has only gone up by 150%, so it clearly has not kept pace. As you can see in this chart, also helpfully provided by the Harvard Law School Forum, CEO pay outpaced GDP, the Consumer Price Index, and even narrowly edged out the S&P 500 index value. It's not that far off from the S&P index value, but you'd expect CEO pay to be very closely tied to that measure. But you can also see they have a list of reasons why CEO pay went up, and the first they list is public disclosure for the pay increase. Now, what does this mean for you? Unfortunately, for those people who will fall into the range of disclosed pay, I think the upward pressure in your wages is going to be a bit limited. First, if you read the fine print of this new legislation, there are several exceptions that give employers opportunities to avoid disclosure. One is a general recruitment campaign without advertising a specific position. Another is postings which are restricted to existing employees. And there are also exceptions for positions where the role is mostly based in a different jurisdiction. So this could rule out disclosure for many roles that should be applicable to the new range requirements and disclosure requirements. Finally, that $50,000 pay range up to $200K really limits the guaranteed pay disclosure to roles that are less than $150,000. Well, I think some lower level roles and certainly some candidates are going to benefit from this. I think the disclosure cap really does limit the benefit. Also think about it, $50,000 for a range of $150,000 is a range of 30%. That's a pretty large variance when you want to get specific about what a role is worth. Overall, I think if the cap was higher, let's say 250,000, I think the benefits would be much more widespread. Also, I think if the range was a little bit smaller, maybe 40 or 30,000, it would give employees more actionable information and help with their bargaining power in discussions with employers. While many changes here are good, I do not think we'll see the same upward pressure on wages that CEOs have had over the last 30 years, which in my opinion is a bit too bad because I am all about making sure people are properly paid for the work they do. Hey, if you found this information helpful, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss out on fresh, practical advice like this. Also, join our mailing list at aretiacademy.com so you never miss out. At Areti Academy, we are all about cutting through the noise and giving you practical and actionable advice. Also, let us know if you agree that these changes will not put an upward pressure on wages. It's by sharing our collective knowledge and experience that we all benefit. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next one.